You're not in control, and that's the truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. We chase plans, timelines, structures. We build systems and backup systems. And while all of that may help us feel secure, it's not real control. Because no matter how tight you hold on, life still happens, people leave, jobs change, opportunities show up that you didn't plan for, and sometimes, no matter how perfectly you prepare, things still fall apart. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They believe if they just do more, plan more, or perfect more, they can control the outcome. They think if they hold on tightly enough, they'll force things to work. But let's be honest, what does that really create? Tension, exhaustion, anxiety. Control creates the illusion of safety, but it actually builds a prison. You spend all your time trying to manage what's outside of you, and in the process, you lose your peace, your clarity, and often yourself. The hardest truth, most of what you think you're in charge of, you're not. You can't control other people. You can't control timing. You can't force opportunities to happen. You can't speed up seasons that aren't meant to move yet. And if you keep trying to grip tighter, all you'll do is block the very things you're working toward. Let's be real, control is fear in disguise. When you're afraid of failing, of being seen, of making the wrong move, you try to micromanage everything. That fear drives you to overanalyze, to second guess, to hold back, and here's what you need to understand. The tighter you grip, the more you suffocate the space for growth. Great things don't grow in suffocation. They grow in space, they grow in freedom. So, what do you do instead? You let go. You let go of needing to know every detail. You let go of demanding certainty. You let go of the timeline in your head. And no, that doesn't mean you stop showing up. Letting go doesn't mean quitting. It means releasing the illusion that you're the master of every variable. You're not. You're the master of your effort. Your integrity, your response, that's it. And the more you focus on that, the more everything around you begins to shift. Letting go is uncomfortable at first, because for so long, control gave you identity. It made you feel capable, it made you feel needed, but when you let go, you learn something way more powerful. You learn to trust, you trust yourself, you trust the process, you trust that what's for you won't miss you. And when that trust kicks in, something shifts. You stop chasing and you start attracting. The irony is that when you finally release control, you actually start to feel more in charge, because now you're operating from clarity, not panic. You're leading from vision, not from fear. You're showing up consistently, but you're no longer desperate for a specific result. And that energy, that's magnetic. That's when doors open. That's when the right people show up. That's when ideas flow, not because you forced it, but because you created space for it. When you understand that control was never real to begin with, you stop wasting your energy on trying to hold everything together. You stop performing, you stop pretending, and in that moment of surrender, you become the most powerful version of yourself, the version that doesn't need to manipulate outcomes to feel safe, the version that's bold enough to take action without needing a guarantee. This is where momentum happens, not when you have every piece figured out, but when you finally let go of the need to. Control limits your vision to only what you can imagine, but letting go, it opens you up to what you can't yet see, but is waiting to meet you on the other side of your release. So stop trying to micromanage your life like it's a spreadsheet. It's not. It's a living, breathing experience. You were never meant to control it. You were meant to engage with it, to learn, to adapt, to move forward even when things shift. And when you do that, when you surrender the illusion of control, you gain something way more valuable: freedom. Let go. You don't need to grip so tight. Everything you're chasing is already in motion. You're not falling behind. You're not missing it. Just breathe, trust, take the next step. You're exactly where you need to be. Letting go gets misunderstood all the time. People think it's quitting. They hear let go and assume it means stop trying, stop caring, stop believing. But that's not what letting go is. Letting go isn't defeat. Letting go is clarity. Letting go is strength. When you let go, you're not walking away from your goals. You're walking away from forcing outcomes that aren't aligned. You're stepping back from the constant pressure to control everything, and you're choosing to trust that the right things will unfold in the right time. That's not weakness, that's maturity. You don't let go because you don't care. You let go because you care too much to keep wasting energy in places that are draining you. You're not giving up on the vision. You're just releasing the way you thought it had to happen. You're letting go of the timeline you obsessed over. You're letting go of the version of the dream that was wrapped in your own limitations. Because here's what most people don't realize: when you're too attached to one specific path, you miss all the other open doors. You could be walking right past the opportunity that's actually meant for you because you're so stuck trying to force the one that isn't. Letting go creates space for that shift. You know those moments when you're doing everything right, but it still isn't working. That's usually a sign, not a sign to give up, but a sign to release. You've been holding so tightly to the outcome that you've stopped listening to your own instincts. You've stopped being creative. You've stopped flowing. Letting go means stepping out of survival mode and stepping back into alignment. Think about it like this: letting go is like opening your hands. You can't receive anything new if your fists are clenched around what you thought was supposed to happen. You can't move forward if you're gripping the past or clinging to a strategy that's no longer working. Letting go is a reset. It's how you shift your posture so you're open to what's next. But let's be clear, you still show up. You still do the work. You still hold the vision. Letting go doesn't mean you stop. It just means you stop obsessing. It means you stop chasing validation. You stop trying to prove your worth through struggle. You stop believing that burnout is the cost of success. When you let go, you move differently. You trust your pace. You don't rush just to keep up with other people's timelines. You stop looking sideways and start tuning inward. That's power, that's leadership, that's growth. So if you're in a season where something isn't clicking, don't immediately assume the answer is to try harder. Maybe the answer is to loosen your grip, take a breath. Look around, ask yourself, what am I holding onto that's no longer serving me? Is it a plan, a person, an identity, a fear? Letting go of those things doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise, because staying stuck in something that isn't working isn't commitment. It's avoidance, it's fear, it's ego, and your future is too important to let your ego keep you small. You're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to change your mind when you get new information. Letting go of what's not working isn't quitting. It's making space for what will work. It's strategic. It's healthy. It's forward thinking. There is no badge of honor for suffering through something that doesn't align with who you're becoming. The goal isn't to endure just to say you didn't quit. The goal is to grow, and sometimes growth requires release. Letting go isn't a loss, it's an opening. It's you saying, I don't need to control this. I trust myself. I trust the process. I trust what's ahead, even if I can't see it yet. And in that space, when you're no longer driven by fear or desperation or pressure, that's where everything starts to shift. That's when new energy comes in, new people, new ideas, new opportunities. You weren't giving up. You were making room. So no, don't confuse letting go with losing. You're not backing down, you're leveling up, you're trading force for flow, you're exchanging chaos for clarity, and that decision, that's how momentum begins again. You're not behind, you're not failing, you're just being invited to release what's heavy so you can rise into what's next. Let go, not because you're done, but because you're ready. There comes a moment where things don't change because of a strategy shift, a new tool, or a better plan. They change because you do, your energy shifts, and when that happens, everything responds. You can't always explain it, but you feel it, and so does everyone around you. Energy isn't just a mood or a vibe. It's direction, it's clarity. It's the way you show up when you've finally decided you're not playing small anymore. People sense it before you even say a word. It's in how you carry yourself. It's in your posture, your tone, your decisions. You stop apologizing, you stop hiding, you stop needing permission. Before the shift, you're often operating from pressure, trying to prove, trying to be accepted, trying to keep up. You do the things, but the energy behind them is heavy. You're moving from fear, from scarcity, from the belief that if you don't hustle harder, it's all going to fall apart. But when the energy shifts, it's like something clicks. You stop chasing and start aligning. You're still working, still showing up, but the why behind it all is different. You're no longer trying to convince anyone. You're no longer trying to force results. You've shifted into a place of trust and ownership, and that is magnetic. People don't follow energy that's desperate. They follow energy that's grounded. When you walk into a room with certainty, not arrogance, but conviction, everything feels different, and you don't have to shout. You don't have to prove anything. People just know you're clear, you're ready, you've moved. The energy shift doesn't come from outside validation. It comes from a decision you make internally. It happens when you finally choose to stop waiting. Waiting for someone to recognize you, waiting for the perfect time, waiting to feel ready. You decide, this is it. No more excuses, no more waiting for green lights. You are the green light. And what's wild is that once your energy shifts, opportunities that felt stuck start moving again. Conversations flow, relationships change, doors you've been knocking on for months suddenly swing open. It's not magic, it's alignment, because people can feel when you're in your power. They know when you're being authentic versus when you're performing. That's why mindset isn't just a buzzword, it's a foundation. You can have all the skills in the world, but if your energy is off, if it's rooted in self, doubt, or fear, you won't get the traction you're capable of. You'll feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill every single day. But when the energy's right, it's not that things become easy, they become clear. You're still working hard, but it feels meaningful. It feels focused. You're not spinning anymore. Energy doesn't lie. You can't fake confidence. You can't fake belief. But when you do the inner work, when you actually take the time to build your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence, your discipline, people feel the difference. And here's the thing, when your energy shifts, sometimes your environment has to catch up. Some people will distance themselves. Some situations will fall away. That's not failure. It's confirmation. The old version of you attracted certain dynamics. The new version of you, it attracts better, but don't expect people to celebrate the shift right away. Not everyone is going to understand it. That's okay. This isn't about convincing the outside world. It's about aligning with the inside truth. You're no longer seeking external permission to go after what you know you're capable of. You're no longer waiting for the perfect timing to act like a leader. You're embodying it now. That's the shift. When your energy changes, your standards change. You no longer say yes to everything. You no longer settle for less just to keep the peace. You stop negotiating with your potential. That's not ego, that's growth. This shift is subtle but powerful. It's the decision to act from abundance, not fear, to lead from clarity, not chaos, to speak with purpose, not panic. When you do that, people notice, even if they don't understand what changed. But you know, you feel it, and that's what matters. So if you've been wondering why things feel off, why you're working hard but not moving forward, check your energy, not your resume, not your performance. Your energy, because that's the real difference maker. When you shift that, you don't just feel better, you become better, and that version of you, that's who the world's been waiting for. Alignment isn't a luxury, it's the foundation. Without alignment, you're just working harder and harder in the wrong direction. You're showing up, you're grinding, you're pushing, but it feels like nothing's clicking, and that's not because you're lazy. It's because you're out of sync with what you say you want and what you're actually doing. Abundance doesn't show up because you're exhausted. It doesn't respond to burnout. It responds to clarity. It responds to alignment. When your actions, beliefs, and environment all point in the same direction, momentum happens. That's when you stop chasing and start attracting. Let's be real. People talk about abundance like it's a wish. Like it's something you hope for if you journal hard enough or say enough affirmations. But abundance isn't just mindset, it's movement. It's how you show up every single day when no one's watching. It's the decisions you make when no one's clapping. It's whether or not your habits are backing your vision. You don't attract what you say you want. You attract what you're aligned with. If you're asking for growth, but still making choices based on fear, you're out of alignment. If you say you want confidence, but you keep playing small to avoid being judged, you're not aligned. If you say you're ready for more, but still hold onto every safety net, abundance isn't going to rush in. It's going to wait until you actually make space. Alignment requires honesty. It requires you to stop lying to yourself about what's fine. It requires you to get real about where you're out of integrity with your own goals, and that part is uncomfortable. Because it forces you to confront the gap between what you believe you're capable of and how you're actually showing up. But when you close that gap, even a little, you start to feel it. You feel energized instead of drained. You start to wake up with purpose instead of pressure. That's not a fluke. That's alignment. You're no longer spending your energy managing the tension between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And here's what matters. Alignment isn't perfection, it's consistency. It's about making small, daily decisions that move you toward your highest self. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be honest about where you're out of step and be willing to adjust. Because when alignment happens, abundance becomes inevitable. It doesn't mean everything shows up overnight, but it does mean that things start flowing instead of feeling forced. Opportunities come to you because you're prepared for them. Not just on paper, but in mindset, in presence, in energy. You don't need to beg for attention. You don't need to manipulate situations. You become the kind of person people trust, people follow, people invest in. You don't get that kind of momentum by accident. You get it by doing the work to make sure your values, your behavior, and your goals are working together, not against each other. That's alignment, and when you hit that point, you start making decisions differently. You stop saying yes out of guilt or fear. You start trusting your instincts again. You stop apologizing for having standards. You start protecting your peace like it's part of the business plan, because it is. Abundance isn't always about more money or more attention. Sometimes it's about more clarity, more energy, more impact. Sometimes abundance looks like less chaos, less distraction, less drama, so you finally have room to build what actually matters. And here's the thing, you don't find alignment by accident. You create it, you choose it. Every time you say no to what isn't serving you, you're building alignment. Every time you take action, even when it's uncomfortable, you're reinforcing alignment. Every time you trust your inner voice instead of the noise, you're deepening alignment. That's when the shift happens. That's when what used to feel hard starts to feel natural. That's when you stop pushing and start flowing. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped fighting yourself. So if you're ready for more, stop looking out there. Start looking in here. Are you aligned? Are your choices matching your values? Is your daily behavior connected to your long-term vision? If not, you don't need to panic. You just need to shift. Alignment first, abundance follows always. You can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't move, nothing changes. And you can take all the action in the world, but if you don't believe in what you're doing, you'll burn out fast. Faith without action is fantasy. Action without faith is just noise, but when you combine the two, that's when everything starts to flow. Flow isn't a feeling you wait for, it's a result you create. It comes when you stop overthinking and start trusting, when you stop hesitating and start showing up. Faith gives you the courage to start. Action keeps you in the game. You need both, one isn't enough. So many people get stuck because they're waiting to feel ready. They think confidence has to come first. They think clarity has to show up before they move. But that's not how it works. Faith is what you lean on when the path isn't clear. Faith says, even if I don't have all the answers, I'm still moving forward. Faith says, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be aligned. And action says, let's go. You can't think your way into momentum. You move your way into it. Yes, plan. Yes, prepare. But at some point you have to step out. You have to try. You have to risk being seen. You have to trust that whatever comes next, you can handle it. That's faith, not in a perfect outcome, but in your ability to adapt, respond, and grow. When you build your life on that kind of faith, you don't need to force things anymore. You don't panic when it gets quiet. You don't spiral every time you hit resistance because you've already decided, I'm doing my part and what's meant for me is already in motion. That belief lets you keep moving without being emotionally wrecked by every challenge. And that's what creates flow. Flow isn't about ease, it's about alignment. You're still working, you're still making bold moves, but it's not coming from desperation anymore, it's coming from trust. You're not just throwing things at the wall and hoping something sticks. You're executing from a place of grounded belief, and people can feel that. That energy is undeniable. The truth is, most people live at one extreme. They either sit around waiting, thinking the universe is going to hand them a breakthrough with no effort, or they work themselves into exhaustion, trying to force results from a place of fear. Neither of those strategies work. They create burnout, disappointment, stagnation. Flow lives in the middle. It's the balance of belief and action. It's the space where you've done your part and now you let it breathe. You don't overmanage. You don't overthink, you stay present, you stay consistent, and you stay open. That part matters, staying open, because when you're locked into one way, something has to happen. You block every other door. But when you're in flow, you trust that what's for you may not always look the way you pictured it, and that's okay. Sometimes the breakthrough shows up in a way you didn't expect. Sometimes the opportunity comes through a detour, not the original plan. But you won't see it if you're obsessed with control. That's why faith matters. Faith keeps you from quitting when it's quiet. Faith keeps you centered when things shift. Faith reminds you why you started when the results haven't shown up yet. And action keeps the momentum alive. Action keeps you in the process. Action is how you meet your future halfway. The most powerful people you know aren't the ones with the perfect plans. They're the ones who move even when it's messy. They're the ones who trust themselves enough to keep going, even when there's no applause, even when they're scared. That's the difference. That's what flow is made of. You don't need to know how everything will unfold. You don't need to be certain about every step. What you do need is the courage to start and the discipline to keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when it's quiet. That's the formula. Faith plus action equals flow. So if you've been stuck in your head, overthinking the next move, pause, take a breath, come back to your vision, anchor into it, then act, take one bold step, then another. Trust that if you keep moving in alignment, the right doors will open, and the wrong ones will close for a reason. You don't need to force it, just flow with it. The momentum is already building.